Hello, my name is Sonia Nieto, and I'm here to interview Roger Wallace about his distinguished career as a sixth grade teacher at Fort River School in Amherst, Massachusetts for 38 years, and before that, a year in Worcester, Massachusetts. Roger recently retired, and in the time that he was a teacher, he left an indelible mark on many hundreds of students whose lives he's touched, as well as on their families, and of course on his colleagues and on the school itself, and on the town, of course. So upon Roger's retirement, the family of two of his students, Imani Romney Rosa and Joaquin Maceo Rosa, came up with a wonderful idea, and that was to immediately and enthusiastically have an award that would honor Roger Wallace's teaching, and that would honor a teacher each year. And so it's to be called the Roger Wallace Excellence in Teaching Award, and it'll be given annually to an elementary school teacher in the Amherst Public Schools. So please consider making a contribution to this wonderful award that would celebrate and honor an elementary school teacher. Contributions of any size are welcome, and we especially encourage people to consider becoming a founder and contribute at least $200 toward endowing the award. We know that Roger has left his mark on many people, students, colleagues, and community people, and we hope you'll join us in honoring other teachers as we honor him at the same time. So now let's get on with why we're here today. Let's hear from Roger about his experiences as a teacher and the wisdom he's developed over the years, not only as a teacher, but also as a mentor and as a community member here in Amherst. So Roger, let me start with how we met. You and I met about 37 years ago, because it was exactly when my family and I moved here. And we walked into Bob Suzuki's course in Intro to Multicultural Education at the university. Besides me, Martha Faison, another extraordinary teacher, was also in that class. I don't know if you remember that. And that class changed not only my life, but I know your life and Martha's life and many people's lives as well. So the question that I have for you is, what do you remember most from that course, and how has it influenced you?
Well, I think first and foremost, what I remember was Dr. Suzuki. His ability to include a staff that was reticent, and that the goal was not just to educate us, but was for us to share our knowledge with the teaching staff that was around us. They may have not been in the course, but through our abilities and our relationships, we could disseminate the information he gave us. So that was first. And second was how lively the discussions were, and how I think elucidating the readings, Geneva Gay and Richard Steele, and all of the folks that he had us read just got us going, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah. Yes, it really started me on my career as well. So let's talk about your teaching career. Why and how did you start teaching? I know it was sort of a roundabout way, because I've interviewed you for my book and you told me about it. So briefly, can you tell us about that?
It began at Clark University. I thought I was pre-law until of course, I had a student job, and my job went from being in the gym to helping a film company film the first community school, Elm Park Community School. And I was supposed to just carry the equipment around, and I was going to be paid a little bit more wages, so that was exciting. Carried everything around, and at one point the director gave this very long explanation, and the kids who were coming into school just looked at him like, "What do you want us to do?" And I looked to him, I said, "Can I try to explain what you want?" And I did, by asking them, "Did you see a program that was on TV?" And they all, yeah, we saw that. I said, "Well, act like you're talking about it." And from that moment on, he said, "Whenever I have a direction, I'm going to let you give it." So I stayed at Elm Park Community School, first as a volunteer, and it just changed what I wanted to do. I immediately went from pre-law to I wanted to be an educator. And I went home and told my wife, that's what I wanted to do, and Jackie said, okay. And I got engaged in a program at Clark's, and at that time they were looking for teachers of color, and I got to fill the bill at Elm Park Community School. After I interned, I taught there, and then after my wife graduated, she wanted to matriculate to this part of the state. It was greener, and ergo I applied, and I ended up in Amherst.
Mm-hmm. And before you ended up in Amherst, though, you had applied to and been accepted to the University of Virginia Law School, which I don't think a lot of people know. And although you would have made a wonderful lawyer, I'm so glad you stayed that you chose teaching. So can you tell us, what do you think was the most significant part for you of being a teacher here in Amherst for 38 years?
The most significant part is every year is a new year. Every year is a new body of children to whom and for whom you must provide excellent instruction, excellent relationships, and so my ability to be with children and to talk to them about important matters of the world and about themselves as well became sort of the linchpin of the things that I did. And I think for almost each time September or now the last week in August comes around, there's a nervousness and an anticipation. I could not wait to find out what this new group of children were going to present to me. And as I always told them, I said, I'm going to learn as much about children and about your perspectives on the world as you're going to learn from me and from these books that we have in front of us. And that's sort of the excitement. It's new every year. And everyone said, well, you do the same thing. No, you don't. Because the kids are new. They have different perspectives. They have different strengths and weaknesses. And I feel in some ways like a detective. You find out what those are both collectively, individually, in small groups, and then you work on those dynamics. And that is a paradigm that is exponential in terms of how much you have to deal with. And that's the excitement of teaching. And for 38 years, here in 1 year in Worcester, I got to do that. Yeah. And that was exciting.
Wow. I remember many years ago, probably 15 or 20 years ago, I was driving somewhere in Amherst, and I saw you crossing the street, and you said hello, and it was August. And I said, so Roger, you ready to go back to school? And a lot of teachers will say, oh, I don't know, the summer hasn't been long enough. And so you said, we shouldn't have such long summers. You know, I just want to get back in there. We should have a month. I don't know if everybody would agree with you, but that kind of enthusiasm, I think, is just wonderful, and especially wonderful for parents to see. Parents, you know, whose kids will be in your classroom. Can you share some of your favorite moments as a teacher?
38 years worth. Yeah. I think I can.
Good.
I think coming here initially was absolutely exciting. Western Massachusetts. I grew up in Springfield, so I was never far from home. But one of the first excitement that I felt was that as I drove around the community, I saw the disparity in terms of different classes of children. And that was going to be exciting. When I taught in Worcester, the Elm Park was located in the central part of the city. Most of the kids were of very similar social class. And here I could see the difference. And how was I going to incorporate all those things that I'd learned into that? So that unto itself was an exciting moment. But I think in my third year here, the students wrote a Declaration of Interdependence in 1976. And it was to celebrate, of course, the bicentennial. And we wrote it and we sent it out to Supreme Court justices. We sent one to Harry Reasoner. We sent one all over America, and we got responses. We got responses from Harry Reasoner. We got a response from a Supreme Court justice. We got a response from the UN. And the exciting thing was that they said, there are some exciting ideas that you're sharing with your kids. And I got to hang those things up for kids to see that when you say something important and thoughtful, somebody's going to listen. And so that's one really, for me, an exciting moment. I think some of the other exciting moments I began about 15 years into my tenure at Fort River, putting on a one-man show called, from Langston Hughes's play, the poem, The Negro Speaks of Rivers. And I became 9 characters, Africans, from West Africa, to a slave, to a freeman who was a stop on the Underground Railroad, to all the way to myself, dealing with the pain and the suffering of the bombing of Birmingham. So the kids get to see non-famous people and what their perspectives in history were. And I do remember one occasion when I was getting ready to, I was captured, and I was dressed in a African robe, and underneath I had my intern put chains on, the kids couldn't see. And as they drew pictures, as I recounted the history, I laid down on near the windows on the univent, and they closed their eyes, we darkened the room, and when I got the robe off, and I did do that, I was chained, and I talked about Middle Passage. I will never do that again on a Friday, because I got many calls from parents who were like, "Oh my gosh, what did you do?" And I explained the story, and then they said, "That's beautiful, don't do it on a Friday."
Why not?
The pain they felt. The kids got on the bus crying, and while I was emoting myself, I did not realize that they had connected up with this character and subsequent characters. So I had to watch that sort of carefully.
Yeah.
And I wrote a book, co-authored a book called Not Just Schoolwork, New Directions in Written Expression, which has gone through a new reprinting. Even though it's a very old book, we sort of dressed it up and played with it, and that's been exciting. I think one of the most exciting things, and I can't get away from this, are the community of people at Fort River with whom I've taught. They are phenomenal. They are noteworthy unto their own rights. I could list literally 50 or 60 teachers, some who are still there, not many, but some who are still there, and those who have passed through the doors, who have ingratiated themselves to kids in ways that are phenomenal. So I capture those moments, discussions with them, sharing students with them, all of the planning that goes on to running a 180-day school year. They were there, and that was always very exciting for me.
You know, one of the skills that it's clear that you have is helping students develop empathy. Not only great skills, of course, in math, which I know you love so much, and in the social sciences and science, but also developing empathy for others, and that's very clear in the stories that you tell. And so I want to quote something that you said to me when I interviewed you for my book, and that was something that your stepfather taught you. Maybe you can repeat that and also say a little bit about it.
Well, being that I considered myself as an athlete, not a person who could build anything, my stepfather was building a new den, and we were piling all the wood, and I found a piece of wood that just didn't look right. And he looked at it and said, "No, no, no, don't throw that, do not throw that away." He said, "It's a matter of planing it and finding the right purpose for it. Then it will be a perfect piece of wood for that purpose." And that stuck with me, because I thought the piece of the wood had too many knots in it, couldn't be shaped, but he saw something, the potential in that wood. Given a little workmanship, he thought that he could do something with it. And I've often felt that if I could put my sort of precognition about something based on the way it looked, if I could put it away, what could I do working with a student with relationship and good pedagogy and good curriculum? What could I do to help that child realize that so the child could realize their purpose? And so I learned from him just that one little instance. It was fun.
It's a fabulous metaphor for being an excellent teacher, really, for reaching every child. I want to quote something else that you said when I interviewed you. You said, well, you know, when we first came here, Amherst was a dramatically different place. It's become extremely diverse compared to how it was before. And of course, the changes reflected in the schools. You said that some teachers expect all their students, regardless of their background, to be the same. And you said that you would say to them, can you teach them as they are instead of, I'll teach them when they become what I want them to be, and then they'll be ready to learn? And you continued and said, they're ready to learn. They need to learn now. So if you want to be a successful teacher of kids of diverse backgrounds, put your stuff away. Now, we could build a whole course on those 4 words, put your stuff away. Can you say more about what you mean by that?
Yes, I think that we all have preconceived notions of what we want in our relationships, in our work situations, but at school, you're not building a cabinet. You are dealing with a human being with emotions and their own way of looking at the world and home and this and that. And your preconceived notions really just get in the way. Mm-hmm. But instead, if you can put your stuff away and say, here we are, 2 people. Yes, I'm the one with the degree and the knowledge, and this child has got the knowledge to get. But if I can put that away and begin looking at that person and their possibilities as a human being, as their possibilities as a learner, in all 3 domains, not just cognitive, but also their affective domain, and their psychomotor. Do they like to go out and run and exercise and use their large muscles? All of those things are very important. So it's very important for a teacher to put your preconceived notions, you don't dump them off the table, just put them aside. Let them rest in order to learn the nature of what that child is all about. And that's really makes things exciting. Because putting your own stuff away means taking some risks. May mean hearing some things you don't want to hear simply because you are there with them as a person without any preconceived notions. I always tell my kids, I am going to learn as much from you as you are going to learn from me. Yeah. And that's not always a notion that we have as educators, but I think it's an important one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a good segue to another question that I have, which is, what advice would you give to a pre-service teacher or somebody who's contemplating teaching about becoming an excellent teacher?
If you are going to be a high school English teacher, great. It is not just the English, the literature, the writing that makes the world go round. It is your ability to bring the world and its relevance into English class. And that is a very difficult thing. If you're going to be a social studies teacher, that one speaks for itself. The influence of environment and science on the world, and the fact that if we look at different places in the world that are mining materials that are dangerous, that some countries would like to exploit because of that. It's not just about the valence level or the ability of that chemical to mix with others. It's about where that chemical lies. If you're an elementary school teacher, in the broadest sense of the word, a generalist, I would tell any pre-service teacher, know the world. It is easy for us, given proper training, even if you said as a young person you didn't like math, to learn how to teach 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade math. It can be done. But know the world. What is the relevance and an importance to that world, and that those numbers or literature or grammar or science to the whole of the world's experience? Now, you can't do it all in 1 year, but if you began in kindergarten all the way through high school with that same idea that, yes, knowing the quadratic equation is important. And you may not be able to apply that quadratic to an instance that something is happening in the world in China or somewhere else. But there will be instances when you look at the whole of the numeration system. Where did it begin in terms of, well, there's some great numbers and great things done by the Egyptians and the Greeks and whoever. You could go on and on, the Sumerians. You could go on and talk about that. Bring the world to your curriculum. bring it, because it's not there unto itself unless you bring it.
Yeah, great. Okay, I have one more question for you, Roger, and that is that the proposed award would celebrate and support elementary school teachers in the Amherst schools now and into the future. So what impact would you like to see the award have on teachers and the elementary schools? I know you just found out about it a few weeks ago after, you know, it was already in the works.
Well, I know that there's two endowed chairs for Robert Frost chairs. Mm-hmm. And I don't know all of the credentials or what it is
criteria.
You need criteria
Mm-hmm.
to win such an award. But I do know that a person recognized for this award would give their whole self to the students. I don't even really know what that looks like. I'd have to think about it. Mm-hmm. But I do know that it is a teacher who has shown excellence in those areas: instruction, in leadership, in terms of their school community, in terms of knowing their children. And my line was that if I didn't know half of the students in the school, not my grade level, if I didn't know half of the students by name, just to speak to them in the hall, then I wasn't doing my job. Mm. And so I made it a point to try to, as lines pass, meet children. As going through the cafeteria, meet some children and try to remember their names and make them feel as if they are a part of the school community. So I would say it's good curriculum, good instruction, good leadership in terms of peers, and as well as sort of the arms that bring the community together. Those would be the things that I think are most important, and it's what drove me.
Yeah. It's also clear that for you, relationships are at the heart of what you do. Of course, the curriculum is always there, the pedagogy is important, but without the curriculum and without the relationships, and you made that clear in how you get to know your students, that is really the essential ingredient to being an excellent teacher of any grade.
I'd like to say something about that. I think that no matter what grade level you teach, we're all people. And I think that when I go, and I spend a lot of time taking my own children, which was really nice, Jackie really appreciated it, to a game. Oh, we're going to go to a soccer game. Who's playing? I don't know, 4 kids from the school. And seeing my students play gives you a whole different picture of where they are, and in that same way, where they really may be proficient and strong and the best player on the team, or someone who's really learning how to play. But that whole experience becomes very important. So I think that's important. I used to go to piano recitals. Why not? Child said, I could not finish my math because I have a recital in 2 weeks and I'm nervous. And so what do? I go to the recital. It was worth missing a math assignment because the music was beautiful. Students who go to plays, I go to their plays. So I think it's that whole thing. That's how you relate. By finding out they're interested in theater, well, in this case, so was I. I never played the violin, but I listen. And to have an audience is a terrific thing.
Yeah. Well, I want to finish with, thank you very much, Roger. That
You're
was
welcome.
terrific. With just letting you know that we would love for you to consider making a contribution to help create this endowment for the Roger Wallace Excellence in Teaching Award. Remember, founders are those who will contribute at least $200, but everyone is encouraged to contribute at whatever level would be good for you. So please send check or money order to the Roger Wallace Excellence in Teaching Award, P.O. Box 3640, Amherst, Massachusetts 01002. Thank you very much, and thank you for your service and your commitment, Roger.
You're welcome.